Thank you for being here today. Chicago Blackhawks are more than just a hockey team to me and my family. We are a community. It's built on the trust and support of our fans, players, employees, and partners. This is why we were so troubled to learn about these very serious allegations made by a former player, and is why we commissioned the law firm of Jenner & Block to conduct an independent investigation into these events. To be clear, neither myself nor Danny knew anything about these allegations until we received word that a lawsuit was being filed. If we had, we certainly would not be standing here today. I'll turn it over to Reid Schar to speak more about the investigation and its findings.
Thank you, Rocky. My name is Reid Schar, and I am a partner at Jenner & Block and co-chair of Jenner's litigation practice. I was hired by the Chicago Blackhawks in late June 2021 to independently investigate the Blackhawks' response to allegations of sexual misconduct by a former coach. Our investigation was precipitated by the May 2021 filing of a lawsuit in state court in Illinois against the Blackhawks by a hockey player formerly affiliated with the team. Neither I nor my firm represent the Blackhawks in this civil litigation. The player who brought the lawsuit, who I will refer to throughout this as John Doe, alleged that in May 2010, he was sexually assaulted by the then video coach for the Blackhawks, Brad Aldrich. Aldrich was a video coach for the Blackhawks from July 2008 through June 2010. In 2010, he was 27 years old. John Doe was a 20-year-old hockey player for the Blackhawks American Hockey League affiliated team, the Rockford IceHawks. John Doe was called up to Chicago during the 2010 playoffs to serve as a Black Ace, or in other words, a prospect player who was available to play if several Blackhawk players were injured or otherwise unable to play. John Doe has further alleged that the Blackhawks were made aware of the alleged sexual assault by Aldrich soon after it occurred and failed to act to address the assault. Over the course of the last 4 months, we independently investigated first the conduct of the former video coach, Brad Aldrich, in and around May 2010. Second, the extent to which individuals affiliated with the Blackhawks, including those in senior management, knew about Aldrich's conduct in May 2010, and when and how those individuals learned about the conduct. And third, when and how individuals affiliated with the Blackhawks, including those in senior management, responded to the information they learned about Aldrich's conduct in May 2010. Our investigation was independent and it was thorough. The Blackhawks directed us to follow the facts wherever they led, and that is exactly what we did. We were permitted to conduct an investigation independent of interference or influence. We, and we alone, designed and executed the investigation with no limits from the Blackhawks. In our sole discretion, we chose who to interview and what documents to review. The Blackhawks at all times provided prompt access to documents, employees, and information, including contact information for current and former employees and players. In the 4 months, we interviewed 139 witnesses. Multiple of those witnesses were interviewed more than once. We interviewed 21 current and former Blackhawks players and Rockford IceHawks players. We interviewed 14 members of the 2009 to 2010 Blackhawks roster and 5 of the 9 Black Aces who were called up to the team during the 2010 playoffs. We interviewed John Doe. We interviewed Brad Aldrich. For both those interviews, their attorneys were present. We interviewed the Blackhawks chairman, as well as the Blackhawks CEO. We collected over 100 gigabytes of electronic records from over 145 individuals and 49 boxes of hard copy records from the Blackhawks. We delivered our final report to leadership yesterday, and I understand it will be publicly available in its entirety following this briefing. During our investigation, we learned the following. On May 8th or 9th, 2010, John Doe had a sexual encounter with Brad Aldrich. John Doe and Brad Aldrich have widely divergent recollections of the sexual encounter, but both men agree an encounter occurred. The heart of the difference between the two recollections is not only what occurred during the encounter, but most critically, whether the encounter was consensual. John Doe stated to us unequivocally that the encounter was entirely non-consensual and described details that you will be able to see in the report, some graphic detail, that were clearly a sexual assault. Within a week of the encounter, John Doe described the same encounter as non-consensual to a confidant who we also interviewed. Brad Aldrich, on the other hand, stated the encounter was entirely consensual. The week after the encounter occurred, somewhere between May 12th and May 19th, John Doe shared very limited information about the encounter with the Blackhawks skating coach. And then, on May 23rd, 2010, the Blackhawks Senior Director of Hockey Administration, Al McIsaac, was told by a Blackhawks employee that there may have been a sexual encounter involving Aldrich and John Doe, and separately, that Aldrich had sent a sexually explicit text message to another Black Ace player. Mr. McIsaac dispatched the Blackhawks mental skills coach and team counselor, Jim Gary, to speak to John Doe to gather details of what may have happened. John Doe recalled to us that he told Mr. Gary the details of the sexual encounter with Aldrich in full. Mr. Gary recalled speaking to John Doe on May 23rd, but obtaining much more limited yet still very troubling information from John Doe that Mr. Gary informed us he believed to be true, that Aldrich was pressuring John Doe to have sex with him, and that Aldrich, the coach, told John Doe, the player, that if John Doe did not comply, Aldrich could harm John Doe's career. Later, on May 23rd, within an hour after the Blackhawks won the game that secured their place in the Stanley Cup Finals, 5 members of Blackhawks senior management, then President John McDonough, Mr. McIsaac, Stan Bowman, then Executive Vice President Jay Blunk, and then Assistant General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff, along with Coach Joel Quenneville and Mr. Gary, met to discuss what had been learned about Aldrich and John Doe. Accounts of that meeting vary significantly, and the participants had limited recollection of the details of the meeting. At a minimum, though, the senior leaders, including then President John McDonough, were informed of alleged sexual harassment of a player by a coach, including efforts by the coach to engage in unwelcome sexual activity with that player. Several witnesses recalled and later told others about a discussion that then ensued during the meeting regarding whether the time was right to address the allegations against Aldrich in light of the ongoing playoffs. One witness recalled that during the meeting, Mr. McDonough and Coach Quenneville made comments about the challenge of getting to the Stanley Cup Finals and a desire to focus on the team and the playoffs. What is clear is that after being informed of Aldrich's alleged sexual harassment and misconduct with a player, no action was taken for 3 weeks. One witness recalled that the decision on how to proceed was left in Mr. McDonough's hands, and another witness recalled Mr. McDonough saying he would speak to John Doe. Mr. McDonough did nothing to address the allegations until June 14th, after the playoffs were over, when he reported the information to the Director of Human Resources. While there was a lack of recollection as to whether anyone else present in the meeting, besides Mr. McDonough, needed to or would take any additional steps, nothing was done by the other senior leaders to address the situation. As a result, The Blackhawks' own sexual harassment policy, which required investigation of all reports of sexual harassment to be conducted promptly and thoroughly, was violated. The failure to promptly and thoroughly investigate the matter and the decision to take no action from May 23rd to June 14th had consequences. During that period, Aldrich continued to work with and travel with the team. On June 10th, during an evening of celebration after the Blackhawks Stanley Cup win the previous day, Aldrich made an unwanted sexual advance towards a Blackhawks intern who was 22 years old at the time. Also after the Stanley Cup win, Aldrich continued to participate in celebrations in the presence of John Doe, who had made the complaint. Aldrich was also permitted to participate in Stanley Cup victory events, such as hosting the Stanley Cup for a day in his hometown and receiving a championship ring even after his departure from the team. After Mr. McDonough reported the information to the Director of Human Resources on June 14th, Aldrich was then given the option to undergo an investigation into what had occurred with John Doe or resign. He chose to resign, and no investigation was conducted. Our investigation uncovered no evidence that the Blackhawks owners, including the current chairman and current CEO, were aware of the events of 2010 at any time before John Doe's potential civil lawsuit was brought to their attention ahead of its filing. This also applies to the Blackhawks' current president of business operations and general counsel, both of whom joined the organization in 2021. And now I will turn it over to Danny Wirtz, who has some closing remarks to make.
Thank you, Reid. As we have mentioned, we received the final report yesterday, which addresses the sexual misconduct reported in 2010, as well as the organization's actions based on what we knew and when. We have also shared the report and our responsive plan of actions with the National Hockey League, and we thank Commissioner Bettman for trusting us with this process. As Reid stated, I want to emphasize that we gave his team very clear instructions that they should follow the investigation wherever the facts lead them. They conducted their work completely independently. The Blackhawks had no influence over the direction of their investigation or over the contents of the report. The report is both disturbing and difficult to read. It speaks for itself. Rocky and our leadership team reviewed the report, and we have had important and difficult conversations about how our organization will move forward. As we have stated, we will release the report to you in its entirety following this call, alongside a letter to our entire community that more specifically details numerous positive changes we've implemented throughout our organization since 2010, and especially over the past year. This includes robust policies, trainings, and distinguished personnel to implement and oversee our operations, and, most importantly, demonstrate the culture and values we demand from all who represent the Blackhawks. We believe these actions underscore and solidify our commitment to do the right thing, even if it isn't easy. I also want to share that Stan Bowman has stepped aside. Rocky and I appreciate Stan's dedication to the Blackhawks and his many years of work for the team. However, we and he ultimately accept that in his first year as general manager, he made a mistake alongside our other senior executives at the time and did not take adequate action in 2010. Stan exhibited extreme professionalism and integrity in cooperating in the investigation, more so than his peers, and we cannot overstate the important role Stan played in revisiting that meeting in the report. I believe that if this had happened in 2021 with Stan at the helm, the Stan that I know and we know would have acted differently and been a louder voice in that room. None of the other executives who are involved in the Blackhawks response in 2010 will be with the organization moving forward. Current Vice President of Hockey Strategy and Analytics, Kyle Davidson, will take on the role of Interim General Manager as we begin our search for new hockey operations leadership. We will provide a further statement from Stan following this call. We talk a lot about hockey culture. I believe one of the beautiful parts of our game is the focus on team success over individual achievements and accolades. But that cannot come at the expense of individual safety and well-being. It is clear that in 2010, the executives of this organization put team performance above all else. John Doe deserved better from the Blackhawks. And while we believe we have a strong legal defense, I've instructed our lawyers to see if we can reach a fair resolution consistent with the totality of the circumstances. The Blackhawks are a very different organization than we were in 2010. And I'm not talking about wins and losses. I am confident that this would not be tolerated in our organization today. We deeply regret the harm caused to John Doe and the other individuals who were affected, and our failures to promptly address these allegations as we became aware of them. As an organization, we extend our profound apologies to these individuals who suffered from the misconduct of our former employee. We must and will do better. What the Chicago Blackhawks do off the ice is equally as important as anything we do on it. Our family and executive team are committed to ensuring that the Blackhawks adhere to the highest ethical, professional, and athletic standards. We intend to win championships without compromising our integrity. And we hope that we can continue to earn the trust and support of the entire Blackhawks community as we move forward with this as our primary goal. Thank you.